Good morning, boys and girls. I hope that you're doing well. So I have a clarification on packet number 3. I'm going to send an email out to the parents right after I record this video. But the district emailed the teachers and just clarified to us that you can send at the end of the week, send 2 assignments from each menu, which is just 2 from literacy, which can be reading or writing, 2 from math, and 2 from content. So before we said 2 things from reading, 2 from writing, just 2 things from the literacy section, so it can be either reading or writing, 2 from math, and 2 from content. Initially we said, so that would be 8 things, but now that's 6 things. Just because they realized they didn't have enough of both reading and writing. So 2 from literacy, 2 from math, 2 from content, and you're good. So I just wanted to make that clarification before we get started. Today's video is covering packet 3. Today I'm going to talk about each option in the literacy section of the packet, and I'm just going to break down what specifically it's asking you to do. Tomorrow I'll do the same thing for math, and the following day content. So today, like I said, we're going over the literacy options that you have in your packet. So the first one is a reading activity, and I discussed this a little bit yesterday, but I'm going to go into more detail today. Just to be clear, I want you to know what I'm looking at. Looking at this page of the third packet, page 2, and we're starting right here with the reading section. So that says, read the nonfiction text, Animals, Animals. Ask a family member to read it to you if you need help. And Animals, Animals is a book that is in your packet. It starts on page 15 right here. So this is Animals, Animals. You are going to try and read it to yourself, but get a family member to help you if you're having trouble. I'll just go ahead and read it really quickly to you once here, then try and read it to yourself. Animals, Animals. There are many kinds of animals. Elk run fast. Elk live in the mountains. So this is an elk. Giraffes are tall. Giraffes have spots. Elephants are strong. Elephants have long trunks. Camels live in deserts. Camels can go without water for a long time. Foxes have bushy tails. Foxes live in holes in the ground. Zebras have stripes. Zebras live in grassy places. Hippos live near water. Hippos have almost no hair. Polar bears live in cold places. Polar bears eat seals. There are many kinds of animals. So remember, when you are looking at this activity, after you've read Animals, Animals, you need to do a reader response, which is right here. It says, identify the main idea and the key details in the text. Use the chart below to help you record your thinking. So I have drawn what the chart in the packet looks like, and you can draw this on a blank piece of paper or whatever you have. So in Animals, Animals, it's asking you to write the main idea here and then the details that explain why this is the main idea in these 3 boxes. Remember, when we were in school, we said that the main idea is the big thing that the author wants you to take away from the book. The big thing that the author wants you to know after reading their book. We said sometimes that the main idea is said either at the very beginning or the very end of a book. So think about what Animals, Animals' main idea was. You wouldn't just say they wanted you to know about giraffes, because that was just one part of the book. What did they want you to know about in all? That would be your main idea. And then the details are things that all support your main idea. They all help prove that this is your main idea. So after reading animals, you need to fill out this chart on a piece of paper with the main idea and the details, if you choose that activity. For writing, I talked about this one a little bit yesterday. It says, think about, let me erase this first, and then I'll share my screen with you. Okay. Share it so you can see. We're right here where it says writing. Think about a chore or task you have had to do while at home. Create a how-to book that explains how to do your chore or task. So an example would be taking out the trash, making your bed, feeding a pet. And when it says text structure, this is how the book is going to be laid out. So on the first page, you would explain, I can feed my dog. This is how I feed my dog. Then on the next page, page 2, you're going to start with explaining the first step. So first, say what you have to do first. Then the next page, next. Now, when we talked about how-to books at school, remember, we said that someone who has never done that thing before should be able to read your book and do it. So think about a chore you've had to do. If you had to make your bed, that could be yours. So imagine someone who doesn't know how to make a bed, has never done it before. They should be able to read your book and do it perfectly. So what your packet says first, so if you take 2 pieces of paper and fold them in half, that can kind of create a book. And you could just draw, so if this is your front cover, draw a line halfway through, and this could be your picture space, and this can be your word space. So for the cover, you could write, how to make my bed by, and your name and a picture on the cover. How to, whatever your chore is that you've had to do while we have been at home, by at the bottom and your name and a picture. That would be your cover. Then it says for your first page. So that would be your cover. Then for page 1, so for page 1, it says you could say, I can, you're going to write what your chore is again. This is how I so if yours is I can make my bed, I can, and then you would write make my bed. This is how I make my bed. And then you would draw a picture. Then you're going to start with your explanation. So on page 2, you're going to start writing the steps. So we said a transition word that we could use is first. Say what you do first. Don't say first. Put the sheets over the bed. That's not clear. First, you need to take the sheet, pull it. Where do you pull it? Pull it up toward the pillows. You need to be very clear and have a lot of detail. If you just say pull the sheets up, the person isn't going to know where to pull the sheets up to. where they go. You need to give a lot of detail because remember, the person reading your book might have never done this before. So you're going to list the first step on page 2, and that should be a complete sentence. On page 3, think of a transition word you could use to start page 3. There's some listed in the packet. I'm going to write next and give your next step. Be very clear and give detailed directions with full sentences. Page 4, you could start with then. These are all transition words. They tell us that this is the next part. This is the next step. And then when you get to your last page, a good way, when you get to your last step, a good way to say your last step would be the transition word finally. So finally means that this is the last step. Then it says, after you have all of your steps, it says to do a closing page. So your last page of your book should be a closing. So a closing would be like, I hope that my book helped you learn how to make your bed. It's kind of wrapping up the book and what your whole point of writing the book was. Or you could say, now you know how to make your bed, and draw a picture. Each of these pages should have a picture up at the top. But that would be a good way to close out the book. It's kind of a nice ending. That should be the page after your last step. So this should be the page with your last step, and then your closing goes here. Now you know how to take out the trash. Whatever your chore is. So that's a writing activity that you could do. And make sure you take your time practicing your handwriting, making sure all the letters are formed correctly. Don't rush through. Next, we're going to look at the next reading activity. So that will be right here. It says, read the fiction text Beanie and the Missing Bear. Ask a family member to read it to you if you need help. So, Beanie and the Missing Bear. So let's go find that. Right here, page 20 of your packet. Beanie and the Missing Bear. I'll read it, but after I do, you need to read it to yourself. My name is Beanie. I am a detective. That means I solve mysteries. I have my first mystery to solve. My sister Claire can't find her bear. Claire points at Dad's chair. I left my bear in that chair, says Claire. I look on the chair, under the chair, and behind the chair. No bear. Did you see that? Our dog Chomps took that sock. Maybe he took Claire's bear too. I follow Chomps. I look in Chomp's bed. I see a sock, a ball, and Danny's rabbit, but no bear. I give Danny his rabbit. He puts it in a new blanket. What about Danny's old blanket? There is something strange about Danny's old blanket. Do you see it too? Please, Danny, I say, may I look at your old blanket? I open the old blanket. Hello, bear, I say. Chomps did not take the bear. It was Danny. I solved the mystery. Now Claire thinks I'm the best detective in the world. She could be right. And then it says, after you've done that, it says you need to do a reader's response. So read it to yourself. And then it says, retell the story using the 5-finger retelling model. The retelling should include setting, characters, and events in the correct sequence from beginning to end. So this is the 5-finger retelling. This is an example of what it looks like. Remember, we said that when we retell, You are telling the important parts. You're not telling the little itty bitty things that happen. You're telling about the characters, the setting, problem, big events that happen, and the solution, which is how that problem is solved. So a way that you could write out your retelling of the story, look at this picture that gives you the 5 things that you need to retell, and on a piece of paper, you could write 1, and you could look at what the thumb is, and you could say, it's the characters. Write a setting about the characters in the story. 1, the first thing you need to retell is the characters, and then write a full and complete sentence about the characters in the story. So you'd write a full and complete sentence about the characters. Then the second thing you need to retell is the setting. So after you wrote setting, think about the setting of the story. Remember, that's when and where the story takes place. Write a sentence about that, full and complete sentence. Number 3, you need to list the problem, full sentence about what the problem was in the story. List some events that happened in the story, full sentences. You're not just going to write, looks for bear. No, that's not a full sentence. And then your 5th one is the solution, which means how that problem was solved. And you'll write a full sentence about that. That's a way that you could do that on a blank piece of paper. But remember, you can keep the 5-finger retelling page of the packet in front of you so you can see what you need to give information about to correctly retell the story. So I'm going to pull that back up. So this is your 5-finger retelling. So that's your reader's response. The next item is a phonological awareness activity. It says count or say the number of individual sounds in one of the following sets of words. Pick a set of words to complete. Say first word to the student, have the student repeat back the word. Then ask the student to use their fingers to count the individual sounds in each word as they say the sounds in that word. Repeat for all words in the chosen set. For additional practice, someone can say the individual sounds in each word. Okay. So you are going to need a parent to help you with this. This is very much like our phonemic awareness activities that we do as a class. So right now, I'm really talking to an adult who's going to be doing this with their child. So in the packet, there's a set 1 list of words and a set 2 list of words. What it's asking you to say, so if you pick set 1, you would say, so it says, say first word to the student, have the student repeat back the word, then ask the student to use their fingers to count the sounds. So you'd say fast. They'll say it back to you. Now say the sounds in fast. And they would go, ast. And they would tell you that there are 4 sounds. It's not syllables. Make sure they shouldn't be breaking it up by syllable. They should be breaking it up by each sound in the word. So for example, the first word, excuse me, the second word for set 1, spin. So you would say spin. Now tell me how many sounds are in spin. And they should hold up that number. So that's how you would do that. And it says for additional practice, someone can say the individual sounds in each word, then ask the student to blend the sounds to say the word. So if they do that, no problem. Then you can try and do the opposite. So you say ast, and they should be able to say fast. And we practice that a lot in class, so they should not have a difficult time doing that. So you'll just pick either the words in set 1 or set 2 and do those activities with them. Like I said, they should be very familiar with this because we did it a lot while we were still in school. Okay, let me share the screen with you. The next activity is a writing activity. It says, go on a walk outside or through your home. Find 3 objects that you could trace on a piece of paper. After you have traced an object, write to describe each object using adjectives. Describe what each item looks like, feels like, sounds like, smells, and tastes like. So, if you can taste it. If it's not something you should put in your mouth, do not put it in your mouth and write how it tastes. So, it says to go on a walk outside or through your home. So you need to find 3 things that you can trace. So if I'm tracing something, that means that on a piece of paper, so if one of my things is a Sharpie, I would put it on a piece of paper. And be able to trace it. So find 3 things that you can trace like that on a piece of paper. You're going to trace each one. So after you have traced each object, write to describe each object using adjectives. Adjectives are describing words. So that's why it says describe what each item looks like, feels like, sounds like, smells like. So if I was doing a Sharpie, I would write the Sharpie is green, it feels hard, has a strong smell. So as you can see, there's a lot of things that you could say just about one thing. So for the Sharpie, I said the Sharpie is green. It feels hard on the outside. The Sharpie has a very strong smell. It doesn't make any noise. Well, actually, I could say when you take the cap off, it makes kind of like a snap noise. So I could write that. Instead of it doesn't make any noise, so when you take the cap off, it makes a snap noise. So see, there's lots of things that you could say just about one thing, but you should have 3 things. And then you need to describe what it looks like, feels like, smells like, sounds like. And like I said, only if it's food, tastes like. So for example, I happen to have these next to my computer. Almonds. If I picked an almond, I could trace the almond, and then I could write about what it looks like, feels like, smells like. And then I could taste it because an almond is a food and write how it tastes. But if it's not something that you should eat, do not put it in your mouth. Okay. Okay. So the next thing is a writing activity. It says write a letter to your teacher telling him or her about the funniest thing that has ever happened to you. Oh my goodness, I know that I and Mr. Overton would love to hear these. So if you need our address, just go ahead and have your parent email us or message us, and we can get that information to you. I had a couple of students ask last week for my address so they could send a letter. So I'm super excited. I keep checking my mailbox to see if the letters are in the mail. So if you'd like my address or Mr. Overton's, just go ahead and message us. It's about the funniest thing that has ever happened to you. So I know that we'd love to read those. The next activity is a reading activity. It says read a book with a family member. Read a book with a member of your family. Make it fun by using a different voice for each character. So that would be like if a bear is talking, you make your voice really low and growly. So you change your voice for each character in the book. So that's kind of a fun way to make the book really interesting. So I'll read that again. It says, read a book with a family member and make it fun by using a different voice for each character. So pick a book at home, a book of your choice that you would like to read, and change your voice for each character to make that fun. Then you have a reader's response for the book that you choose. And that's going to be retell the story using the 5-finger retelling model. So that's the same thing that it's using this again. And you can do it just like we did before, where you write characters and write a sentence about the characters in the story. Write setting, and then write a sentence about the setting. Same thing for problem, events, and solution, just like I showed you before. So that should be no problem. It says retell the story using the 5-finger retelling model. The retelling should include setting, characters, and events in the correct sequence from beginning to end. So follow that 5-finger retelling, and that will be your reading response for the book that you chose to read with the different voices. You'll do that 5-finger retelling again, which I already explained how to do. The last choice that you have in the literacy section is, I'm going to show that with you now, the letter formation. So it says, ask the student to write the lowercase letters of the alphabet. So that's A, and you're going to put A through M on one line, N through Z on another line. So on the top, you're going to write all the way in order of the alphabet, A, and when you get to M, after you write M, you're going to start another line and go N through the rest of the alphabet. Students should say either the name of the letter or the sound the letter makes as they write each letter. So it shouldn't take longer than 2 minutes, because the alphabet is something we should have down. So make sure that they are saying either the name of the letter or the sound that the letter makes as they write the lowercase alphabet, and it shouldn't take longer than 2 minutes. So make sure you give encouragement for letters that are formed correctly. Again, this is me really talking to an adult that's supervising this. And you're going to have them select one letter the student needs help forming. Use letter formation guidelines in the resource packet to support students in forming, practicing proper letter formation for the letter chosen. Only work on improving letter formation with 1 letter per day. So if there is a letter that after they write the lowercase alphabet, A all the way through M, and then N through Z. After they do that, pick one letter that maybe they had a hard time writing. They didn't make it correctly. Maybe it was a B, but they actually made the D. Pick one letter and have them practice forming that letter correctly. So it says use the letter formation guidelines in the resource packet, which start on page 8 of your packet. These right here. These give instructions for giving instruction on how to properly form letters. So pick a letter that they had trouble forming correctly and have them write it correctly using these directions to practice forming that letter correctly. So that would be, it doesn't say a specific amount of times. So if they have trouble forming a letter, use those cards that give directions for how to properly form the letter and have them practice writing that letter correctly several times. So that will be a good way to practice. And it says only have them work on a letter that they didn't do correctly. Only do one of those a day. So have them write that lowercase alphabet. And while they're writing it, they should either be saying the name of the letters or the sound that the letter makes. Shouldn't take longer than 2 minutes. Then have them practice forming a letter that they didn't make correctly. Practice having them write it correctly several times. So those are your choices for the literacy portion of the packet. And oh, okay, yes, that's all of it. I just wanted to make sure that I went over each thing. So that's the literacy part of the menu. Those are all the choices. I just kind of broke down what the expectations are, what the directions are for each activity. Tomorrow I'll do the same for math, and then the following day content. So the correction is at the end of the week, turn in 2 things from literacy, 2 things from math, and 2 things from content. So 6 things at the end of the week so that we can say they turned in something for every subject. So please do the best you can. If you can't turn in 2 things per subject, please try and turn in something per subject. And we will absolutely accept that. We will try and give you feedback on things that you send to us. You can send them to us via email. I had a couple parents ask if they can use the Marco Polo app to send a video of their child reading. That's perfectly fine. And that would count for one of your literacy activities, a video of your child reading. So, yep, if you have any questions, just ask. We'll try and be as helpful as we can. And I hope this was helpful. Have them do something from each menu every day. So have them do an activity from literacy, an activity from math, and an activity from content every day this week. Then at the end, try and send us 2 things from literacy, 2 things from math, 2 things from content that they did. And we'll be keeping track of who sends us what. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you have a great day. I love you and I miss you, class. And I'm excited because today we have a Zoom at 5:30. And I'm going to send an email out to remind your parents. So we hope to see you then. Have a good one.